the way it also works is, say I have 8 or 10 children, and
Yeah.
my firstborn son is already 22, and I take my offerings in a bag. He has to travel a week's journey, the farthest distance of the tribes of Israel, 4 or 5 days journey, a week journey. And he goes with other young men that their fathers have sent them to go to Jerusalem to buy things and do the offerings and the gifts. That's mandatory at one of these, not every all three, but one of these feast times. So you could send your son in your place because you're at home taking care of business. You could send your son, and I've seen that. I've seen a Frenchman in a shiva, and he lifted up an envelope with $60,000 check as a wave offering for the 2 years accumulated, because you can't go past 3, the 2 years accumulated of tithes and offerings. And it was the son and not the father. The father was a French baker with about 20 or 15, or I don't know how many bakeries in France. And he sent his son alone on the journey to Israel to do the offering and give to an orphanage.
Wow.
Okay.
Neat.
He did not come empty handed, as it says here. He cannot come empty handed. He has to come with something from the household. It's either the father with his sons and teaching them. And then when your sons are of age, if you're too old to go because you live in a big journey or far away or
Well, yeah, this
whatever,
is for everybody that lives in the land. We don't all live in the land anymore.
right? So they would bring it from out of a different land into the land and give it as an offering, but it would go to the Bayi Kadal. It would go to the house, the temple, for the levy. And then the levy only keep 10% and take 90 and give it to the widows and the orphanages and the elderly. They don't keep like today's in Christianity, they pocket the 90 and give 10 away out of the 100%, right? It's the other way around. The levy would keep 10 for their house, and the other 90 goes to the widows and orphanages and elderly that are elderly indeed. Okay. So, and they teach their sons, they take them on the journey and teach them to be accountable and be accountable and what they have done for the year and everything, like brother was saying. But they do not come empty handed, and they can go up to 3 years held back. Okay. But that is accumulated. What they do is what the Messiah said. He says, one person got 1 talent, one person got 3 talents, another person got 5 talents, and one person with the 3 talents gave it to a man of interest, a bank, to collect interest, and he still called him a good servant. Now, the one that had one and buried it, the Messiah told him, "You wicked servant. You could at least put it in a bank and let it collect interest." So, and here's the reason why. Because you see, if I'm putting away 10%, and I'm not going to visit Israel, but on the 3rd year or the 2nd year, I say it's the 3rd year, I could take my 10% of my monthly income after I pay my employees and their insurance and everything else. I could take my 10% of profit and put it in a separate account, a trust that's going to have compound interest for 3 years locked away. Okay. At the end of the 3 years, I'm going to have compound pressed together, shaken over, running over. I'm going to have the tithe. Say the tithe is, I'm just going to say it. Say the tithe is 30,000, but you have now 38,000 because of the 3-year, it could be more of the compound interest depending on the amount. That interest is your money to travel and stay in a hotel in Israel. And the tithe is still the same. And this is what they did when they come from a foreign land or travel. Because even though Jerusalem was built, even though they had the house, some Israelis that are merchants or businessmen, they live far. Some tribes were at a far distance over the Jordan River. Okay? It took a few days traveling on camel, on donkey, or walking. All right? So, and if family members could go, or they would send their son to go with a group of other young men traveling to be protected from robbers and thieves. Of course, the Father promises he'll protect us from robbers and thieves because we're bringing the offering. He'll send Malachim to protect us. So now, say people left Babylon, but some stayed in Babylon. People left Syria, but some Jews stayed in Syria, right? But they still go to Jerusalem to celebrate the feast. Okay? Just like in Israel today, you get people from all over the earth. Anybody want to make comment with that? Anybody want to?
Aki, I actually really want to understand more about the putting away money, the tithing, how we're to do that. I want to know more about that and to be able to invest and use whatever he's given me through the year and how to do that now. I need to learn that.
Well,
I mean, you're explaining it, but I need to really apply it.
In many of my conversations and videos during the feast, I explain little hints here and there. I don't think I have a serious video of 30 minutes of just explaining, but we have been programmed with a churchy Catholic Circe tithes and offerings. Well, every check you got to give because you don't know how to put it in the bank and compound interest, save it. You might go in it and use God's money. That's what the church teaches, right? But if you were to talk to a Rebbe or somebody that has a shul, or today here you call it synagogue, their main offerings only come in the feast days. And the main offerings are only coming on the feast days and during these 3 feasts I mentioned to you. You got it? And it supports them for the rest of the year. That's why in Israel, most rabbis, 90%, work. Because they don't got to check every week. They don't got a basket. They have a box. People could put free will offerings in or something in there. Or I can go to if I want to say the word rabbi, I don't use the word rabbi, but my teacher that has a school, and I would say, hey, I noticed the tires are bald in your congregation van. I'm going to give a free will offering. Let me get the keys of the van. I'm going to go to Firestone and I'll buy you tires and check the brakes while I'm at it. Okay? So there's no money exchange, but there's an offering. All right? That's what goes on in Israel and some places in the United States too, right? Now, the main offerings are in the 3 feast days that I mentioned. Those are the main offerings. And it's a whole year's worth, or somebody didn't come for 2 years, or somebody didn't come for 3 years. All right? And that's put in a main vault of that denomination of the Jewish particular sect. I'm using the word denomination and sect if you can understand. They have groups of accountants. And then they give a little percentage to this, like salaries of food, bread, gasoline, rent, whatever they need for each rabbi of those shuls or synagogues. All right? So now, because they compound it to collect interest for the year. Now, if you're a person that can't save it for the year and bring it to the feast yom, then that's up to you. But you got a free will offering and a covenant vow offering. That's different from the offerings of the feast. Do not let your sons or yourself come empty-handed to the feast. You come with an offering, okay, for the year. That's what it's supposed to be. We have been brainwashed to go to the Circe and pass the basket. It came from Catholicism to the Germanic German McCarthyism and all that, and the Geneva translation into the English translation into the Baptist, the Anabaptist into the congregations we have today. They not only pass it every week on what they call Sunday Sabbath, but they do it every service. They do it during prayer meetings. When I grew up, they didn't have it. They didn't have pass no basket during prayer meetings. They didn't pass no basket during midweek Bible studies. And you don't supposed to take money on Shabbat. You can't take money on Shabbat. So you see Messianic congregations, and they have on TV, and the rabbi has an offering on Shabbat. No, because according to Torah, we don't carry money, we don't buy or sell, and we don't carry money. We walk or go to the shul. We celebrate on, they do it on Friday evening, or they can go on Shabbat morning or afternoon, and they fellowship, but they don't have no money on them. They give during the week. They don't give on Shabbat. The Christianity does it on the first of the week, calls it Shabbat, and they have the biggest offering on Shabbat. When the right rule of Shabbat, you don't give nothing on Shabbat. Okay? You don't give nothing on Shabbat. So you can give before, you could give after, or you can save up for the week. You have a dedication. Say you have an orphanage you want to take care of in some country, or people you know personally, or you got widows, or you got elderly people that have needs, and you save up for that particular feast, and you wave offer it. That's why it's a wave offering. This is the Sukkot offering. You have the Pesach, and you have, which is Mazaot, and you have Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. You notice it's always during harvest times. The Feast of Weeks is harvest times. And then Sukkot is the ingathering. All right. So it's another harvest time. So because most people dealt with barter, they didn't have money. If they turned their product into coin, it's to travel. You were rich because you had things. You know, like my daughter said one time to me, Dad, you know, I wish we had more money. I says, we're rich. She said, what do you mean we're rich? We're rich, I told her. She's very young. I said, what do you mean we're rich? I needed some more money for school, and you only can give me so much. I said, yeah, but we're rich. He says, we got 3 vans, we got 4 work trucks, we got a tractor, we have 3 cars in the garage, you know, or parked around. I got 2 motorcycles. I got a storage for 2 years of food in case something happens. I got ammo for 6 months if you're shooting every day. And then she realized, okay, so richness, according to the scriptures, is what you got, right? You might not have the coin, the nickel, the copper, the silver for wealthy people, and the gold. They say silver for the wealthy, the gold for the kings or the super wealthy. Okay, so the coin is used to travel, to go from one place to another and buy a lamb, a cow, or a bull and use it as a sacrifice, because it's easier to travel with the coin than the animal that great distance. Okay, so they turn their things into coin, travel to Jerusalem, and they get the coin to turn it into the offerings. If they bring crops, it's different. The fruits, the grapes, the grains, it's different. They can travel with that, but that's a lot of weight, but they can do that, or they can buy it there and do the offering. Or they can just take their time and travel, bring it there and give it a burnt offering and a sacrificial offering as well, and use the percentage of the interest they had in the bank of the coins in order to get a haven, hotel, hostel, or somewhere. Usually they have extra space in these houses. They got 2 or 3 little rooms extra, only used for feast times. So when family members travel, they can stay in it. They don't charge their relatives from overseas or different countries. They come from Turkey, they come from Iran, they come from Iraq when they used to have Jews there, and they come to Jerusalem when their relatives and cousins and relatives are there and uncles, and they stay at these places. They're sleeping on the floor. They're cramped, stacked, and packed. But it's the feast, Yoms. You're just there to sleep, shower, and go to the bathroom. You're out the door in the morning to night celebrating. You follow what I'm saying? So that's what they do there. And money's only used for certain things, unless you're super wealthy and you had to stash it, you know what I mean, or put it in a place of interest. So anybody have any statement or question concerning, you made that statement, Lamech? That's the way it works, really. Okay. John Hagee has a fund. He has one offering for one feast, the second feast, and the third feast. And then in those feasts, he has a list: orphans, widows, elderly, etc. In each of those feasts, he has delegated sections. So the congregation of his Christian congregation, they could bring a yearly offering for one of those feasts, and then he would take it to Israel and give it to those delegated orphans, a place of widows, a place of elderly, a place of orphans. You follow what I'm saying? As a Christian church, that's what he does. And he trains the people. This is separate from you giving a tithe to the John Hagee's congregation. This is an offering for the feast. Just like we read in that scriptures, separated from your Sabbaths, your weekly offerings, your vow offerings, or your special gift offerings. Okay, those are separate. And of course, when you're poor, it's a little less amount. It becomes dollars and cents instead of 50s and hundreds. You follow what I'm saying? Depending on your wealth and your wages and stuff like that, you know. But a person, if they want to do an offering for one of the feasts once a year, not all 3, but one of the 3 of the offerings, and they prayerfully find out where they're going to take it and where they're going to use it, they can prayerfully select and start putting in a special lockbox, gaining interest. The more, if you have a 7-year compound interest, that's higher interest. You got a lockbox 4 pound. Ed could explain that to you better than me on banking. You know, you lock in a savings that you never touch for a few years. It's got a high turnaround interest to you, back to you. Okay. So that's what they do in Israel. That's what they do here that are following the Torah of Moshe. Okay. In the United States, there's synagogues, they got boxes, and they don't, in no synagogue in the United States that's a true rabbinical Jew or Jewish in any way, they don't have offerings on Shabbat. They don't do offerings. Only Christians do that, and Catholics. Okay.
I want to interject here for a minute, if you don't mind.
Okay.
This is a matter of the heart. And remember that Yahuwah roams the earth searching for the perfect heart. 2 Chronicles 16:9. And you see it elsewhere repeated in various other scriptures. 1 Corinthians 4:5, and on and on and on. Anyway, if you don't have an offering in your hands because you just don't have anything, you can make a pledge. I did this. I was in one of Morris Cerullo's meetings, and I've been following him and been a member there for a while. And this was in about 2006 or 7. I think it was 2007. Make a long story short, I got an impassioned plea from, I think her name was, is it Rachel, the prayer leader?
Yeah, Sister Rachel.
Then I got an impassioned plea from another guy, and I put some other money. So what I did was I didn't have anything that I had at the moment. So I pledged, and I ended up pledging about $40,000. And Yahuwah brought it into my hands. I had a lot of land, but I had no liquidity whatsoever. And on top of that, my marriage was shot at that time. So I made a commitment, and I literally pledged under Yahuwah to pay what originally was going to be $25,000. That was just to Morris Sorello's ministry. Then other people got wind of it, and they started hitting me up for money. So I said, all right. So I made a pledge to them, and I paid all the pledges by virtue of what Yahuwah brought to me so that I could actually make good on those pledges, not knowing that was going to lead to my first real wife. You know. And so if you don't have anything in your hands to offer, or you can't think of anything, but your heart is there, then commit to doing something that is compliant with what Scripture demands. And commit to do it not because it's a requirement of Scripture, because it's out of the love of your own heart to Yahuwah. That's why we do these things in the first place. So I thought I'd share that.
Well, that's in the category of the vow, a
Yeah.
yearly vow.
Correct.
That's the category of a yearly vow that's separate from the other offerings. Okay. And of course, Morsorello, he would give to certain congregations in Israel. I went to check them out. Some were okay, some were very churchy. Later on I realized it, and the people were very Christian. So, but when you have a willing heart and the Father knows it, and you're innocent about certain things, He still honors it. But once we come to the knowledge of the truth and the proper procedure, you know what I mean? And the proper to make the vow, make a vow. That's something you don't have, but you start to give and you make a vow, okay? Or you make a vow to prepare for the year, the whole year, to give it one of those feasts. Of course, now we know it's changed now.
At the time that took place with me, we were just entering into the period of Sukkot, because as you know, when we left on that trip, this is in 2007, Eliyahu, that's where I met you.
Right.
And on that same mission trip. And of course my wife. And it wasn't just meeting my wife only, it was a change in everything. And you're right, it is, you don't have the money at the time, or whatever it is that you're vowing to or committing to, but you know through the exercise of emunah that Yahuwah will bring you forth so that you do have those funds.